John first suggested that he would install gas tanks on the property that we had purchased adjacent to his brother's property, because if he did that, once we constructed the store building that we had in mind, the tanks would be in place, but he could very easily run gas from those tanks back to this little store of his brother's that we were renting at the very beginning. So he set out and purchased tanks, and he had those tanks delivered to the place that they were going to be installed. But he found out when he went out to find people who had equipment to dig the pits out that the tanks had to go into underneath the ground, he found out that he couldn't find anybody that were willing to dig that place out for those tanks. Finally, he found a black man that lived in Shelby County that had equipment, and he encouraged this man to come out to do this work. This fella came out and worked, I believe it was like 2 days, and then a part broke on some of his equipment. He went back into the city to get that taken care of. But somewhere along the way, he never told us the whole story of it. He said he was threatened. So he moved his equipment and he didn't come back. And as time went on and John could not find anyone to dig this place out to install those tanks, it was 2 6,000-gallon tanks that he purchased at that time. Then he appealed to farmers. There were a lot of farmers at the time, black farmers, to come and help him to dig this place out. Because while the tanks were on top of the soil, at night people would drive by and shoot the tanks, trying to damage them or puncture them. And then he had to remain up there at night to protect his tanks. And he was having a hard time getting them under the ground. But as a result, lots of black farmers came forth. Some came with their tractors and scoops. Other black men came with spades and shovels, picks, and all of that. And they worked for 6 weeks digging this place out, and they got it dug out. And then the tanks were lowered into the earth and covered and filled with water, because he said that they had to be filled with something or they would rise. So they were filled with water. They remained there for about 2 years before we got gas.